In this episode, we're going to look at the ROVE R2-4K dash camera, and I'm going to install it using the 3-wire permanent connection kit, which will keep the camera powered up so that it can record things that happen when you're not around the car. And it has battery monitoring, so if the battery of the car starts to drop, it will automatically shut the camera down to prevent over discharge. Let's check it out and install it. Today we're going to look at the ROVE R2-4K. This is a 4K dash camera with built-in GPS, and I also have the ROVE Ultimate 3-lead Hardwire kit. What the Hardwire kit is for is it allows you to wire the camera up to your fuse box so the camera always has power, so that the camera can record motion detection or time lapse or however you want to set it up. It can record constantly even when your car is parked, so it allows the parking mode to operate. So if something happens to your car in a parking lot, you're going to have a record of it. Now this part of the video I'm shooting in HD, although I'm going to render this out in 4K only because I want to show the quality of the camera. So we'll set up the camera in 4K mode. I'm going to put the Hardwire kit in first, get that all wired up, and then we'll plug the camera in and do some recording, do some driving. And it's not the clearest of days today. It's kind of overcast today, so I may wait to do the actual filming until it clears up a bit. But let's unbox the camera now together to see what's in the package. I should point out that the Hardwire kit is an option, so the camera itself will come with a standard lighter plug and the standard mounting hardware for mounting it to the window. So it comes with a suction cup mount, which is what I'll be probably using. Also comes with some wire dressing clips, which I won't be using, and it comes with a permanent window mount, which is another option, with a couple spare, at least one spare sticky tape, so that's an option. And of course a USB cable and another longer USB cable, a short and a long USB cable, and a 12-volt dual USB adapter plug. First things first, we'll look at the camera itself. 4K Ultra HD with Wi-Fi. Removed before recording. That's just to protect the lens from getting dirty and scratched and so forth. And it says a genuine Class 10 used 3-speed micro SD card is required. It says if you use a lower than Class 3 U3 speed, then the camera will give an error message stating wrong, bad, or fake card. Okay, great. Well, I only have one U3 card, and that's the one that's in this camera that's making this recording. So it's going to have to be just a standard Class 10, unless I go out and specifically buy one for this. It's got HD output, mini HDMI, USB connector to apply power. GPS is built in. SD card goes over on this side, and as you can see, it just slides onto the bracket. So if you've got the permanent window mount mounted on your car, whatever I did with that, you can just slide the camera on and off the mount. So here's the permanent stick-on mount. You would stick this on your window, and then the camera will just slide in. So make sure you've got it oriented the right way for where you're going to stick it, and then you can adjust your up and down to point the camera out the window where you want and tighten it down, and then it's held in place. For permanent installations, these type of brackets are actually very good because you can just pop the camera off and take the camera with you, or if you want to remove it for reviewing footage, you can just pop the camera off. And this bracket actually comes off of here as well, so you can even leave the bracket attached and slide the camera off the bracket. So if your camera is attached like that, you can actually take this entire bracket away and just leave that stuck to your window. If you're in a high crime area where cars get broken into and people steal things like dash cameras, this is a good idea. You can just take the camera with you and all that's left on your window is that. And then when you get back, it's just very easy to attach it. You're not leaving anything behind, such as if you take the camera off like that, you're leaving the bracket behind. Well, it's a telltale sign that there might be a camera hidden somewhere in the car and someone might want to break in and look at it. But you know what? Most people are going to leave the camera plugged in anyway and leave it in their window because they're going to want this to record if someone hits their car when it's parked. Anyway, just going over that. I'll be using, for my test on the camera, I'm going to be using the suction cup mount just because I've already got enough cameras stuck to my window as it is, and I don't necessarily want to stick a third piece of tape on, so I'm going to use a suction cup mount for all the tests that we're going to do today. And the suction cup mount, camera just slides in like that. I guess in this case it would go this way. Camera will go up like that and then you can adjust it. Okay, I could very well get an error message on this. This is a Class 10 Ultra Speed 1. But it's going to have to do because it's all I've got. And I'm not going to run out and buy one for this demo. This card works fine recording 4K with my other action cameras. So if it doesn't work with this, then that's a problem because I use it. I use this card all the time. In fact, I use it for every demo that I've done recently. I've done with this. Grab the power cable and we'll power the camera up so that we can look at some of the menus. Remove the lens protector. And it says format the camera. Is it a touchscreen or not? Guess not. Okay. Formatting. There we go.
Formatting is complete.
It talks. Next, set the time zone. I can set this to, I think we're 8 hours behind. And I'm going to set this up.
Video mode.
Okay, what is it set to? Okay, right now it's set to record by factory default. Actually, that's got quite a nice picture off that screen. It tells you your speed in miles per hour. 1920 by 1080 at 60. That's what it defaults to. I'm going to bump this up to higher resolution. Let's see here. How do I stop this thing? Probably that button to stop recording. Okay, menu.
Video settings.
Resolution. And here are our options. So we have 1920 by 1080. That's probably the lowest. No, it'll even go down to 720p, 1280 by 720. So it'll do 720p at 60, or 30, 60, and 120 frames per second. That might look kind of cool. 1920 at 1080, 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames. It'll also do 2304 by 1296 at 30 frames, 2560 at 1440 by 30 frames, and 2880 by 2160 at 24 frames. So the frame rate is going to drop. And I am going to probably do this recording, well, if I record it at 2880 by 2160, it's going to not look smooth because I'm rendering out at 30 frames. So I might be better to shoot in 2560 by 1440. It won't be quite as sharp, but I think the motion will be a lot better because I'm going to render it out at 30 frames. So we'll do the recording in that mode. But the camera obviously can record a better quality picture than that. Loop recording is set to 135 minutes or 10 minutes or off, which means that the files will be the maximum 4 gigabytes. So when a file gets to 4 gigabytes, it will then go to the next frame or the next file. So that's an option there. Most of these cameras will record, 135 minutes, etc. I'll set it for, let's set it for 10 minutes. Wide dynamic range, on or off. I'm going to turn it off only because the software I'm using to edit doesn't support wide dynamic range, so that might end up with some distortion in the image. And exposure, we'll leave that alone. Time-lapse recording, you can actually do this, have it create your own time-lapse. So you can have 4 images a second, 2 images a second, 1 image a second, 1 image every 2 seconds. Might play around with that. Parking mode. Okay, parking mode works from an internal battery and G-sensor settings. And that will record if the car detects any movement, or if the car's damaged. 24-hour parking mode. Now this one here requires the 3-lead Hardwire kit. And you can set it up for motion detection plus the G-sensor, or time-lapse at 1 frame per second plus the G-sensor. Those are the 3 settings. That's used with the Hardwire kit. And you have to purchase it separately, but we have it. So we're going to set that one up. Okay, motion detection and G-sensor, or time-lapse and the G-sensor. So basically time-lapse, it'll continue to record and at 1 frame per second. And if it detects anybody hit your car, it will then go into full speed recording. Motion detection will not record anything unless it sees motion, which means all the time, because every time a car goes by or any time a bird flies across the screen, it's going to record. So your time lapse and G-sensor is probably a better way to do it, because at least you're getting 1 frame per second, so you'll see something approaching you, and if it hits you, then it'll continue to record at regular speed. And it says not, yes, we'll turn it on. It knows I don't have the Hardwire kit. I'll have to turn that on once I get in the car, once I get the Hardwire kit set up. Record audio, on or off. I'll leave it on for now. I normally do have it turned off. Timestamp, okay, you can have your date and time, speed, and your GPS coordinates are on there. I will, for the sake of this test, I'm going to turn the GPS coordinates off, and I'm going to turn the logo off. But I'll leave the others on just for the demo, but it gives you the option of turning them off, which is a nice feature if you want to use a camera like this to record your road trip so that you can have a record of it, and you don't necessarily want to have the speed and the time permanently burned onto the recording. Like, for example, if you're making a driving video, which I like to do, and might even use this for that, depending on how the quality looks on it, but it looks like it would deliver a really nice picture, I'm sure. Anyway, gives you that option. We back out of that by probably pressing that one. And G-sensor, here we can set our G-sensor to medium impacts or high impact detect or low impact detect. Speed unit will display in miles per hour or kilometers per hour. Hide status icons, that way you can keep these icons on the screen or turn them off completely. Live speed will show you your speed on the screen. Distortion correction, this will correct the fisheye lens. Rotate video, that'll be to turn it over so that if the camera's mounted low on the window and upside down, the picture will appear the correct way. Then we're back to what is this, 3 OFP resolution. Yeah, that's our resolution there. We're back to there. And that's the menu. And then the other one's probably the setup. System settings. So we've got Wi-Fi built in. That will be to interact with an app on your phone. I'm not even going to go there because I don't use the apps as a rule. But it'll turn on the Wi-Fi or turn the Wi-Fi off so that you can control the camera from your phone and transfer files over to your phone. And basically it sets up a Wi-Fi hotspot. Date and time. Hasn't picked up the right time yet because I'm not out in front of the under the satellite, so there's no GPS signal here. So we'll just cancel that part there. Date format, month, day, and year. Clock format, 12 or 24 hours, and then we're back. So those are our settings. That's the display with all the graphics on there that you can turn off. And when, of course, when the power is removed, it'll run for 5 seconds now because that's what I set it to run for, and then shut off. There we go. So now let's look at the hardware kit. The hardware kit allows you to supply power to the camera even when your car is off, and they will have a automatic shutdown so that if your battery voltage drops below a preset voltage, which you can preset, in this case 11.8, 12 volts, 12.2 and 12.4, if your car battery drops below that that voltage, the camera will shut off. That's the way the system operates. Comes with a little voltage detector in here as well to help you in determining which fuse point has power. So if I turn on my power supply here, set it up to like 12 volts. Okay, to use this, connect your ground clip to the ground and it will flash. And oh, look at that, it tells you the voltage. I wasn't expecting that. It's a little digital voltmeter. Well, isn't that neat? What happens if I connect it backwards? Will it say negative? Or will it just not do anything? It just won't do anything. That's kind of cool. I was just expecting this to be a light and not have a digital readout that tells me that I'm putting 12.7 volts into this little tester. But that's kind of neat. Interesting. I wonder what the voltage range on this thing is. Do I dare crank this thing up? Well, my power supply goes to 32 volts. It's measuring 31, so I guess it does go beyond 12 volts. And how low does it go? Well, I can still see it at 2.9, 2.8 volts. It's going to fade out here when I get down to 2.8 because I'm at 2.7 volts now and there's nothing. Because of course, white LEDs need at least like 2.8 volts for them to show up. There it is, 2.8. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can see it. Anyway, little tester comes with. Oh, isn't that interesting? The sound cut on my camera. Well, I was trying to say it comes with a fuse puller and some zap ties and some sticky tape to stick your wires down, and a little unit for stuffing the wire around your trim, and of course your fuse taps. You can plug these into your fuse block. Comes with 4 sizes, 2 sets of each, one for the standby power and one for the accessory, and it's just a matter of identifying which fuses are turned on with the power and which ones have constant power, which we're going to go figure that out. The fuses on here obviously are the ones for the camera. You pull the original fuse out and pop the fuse in to the piggyback that's on the power tap to provide power through to the accessory that you've pulled that fuse from. So on my 2019 Chevy Volt, the fuse box is right here. There's where the fuses are. Now I need to find one that is switched and one that is constantly running. First things first, we'll clip the ground clip to a metal bracket here. That's going to be a ground point. Now I just got to find in here appropriate points and connect 2 of these fuse jumpers so that I can take the power off so that the camera will have power when the car is turned off and go into standby mode. The volt is really easy to find a constant source of power because this entire fuse box is live, and there's on this one there's a bunch of empty sockets and they've all got 12 volts on them, as you can see. So finding a live source is no problem. Now when you plug in to an empty socket like this, only one way is going to give you power. If I plug it in the wrong way, I won't have any power, and I already know that which side is hot because I measured it. So I'm going to plug it in this way here to this empty socket if I can. Go in just like that. Well, kind of hard to do it with one hand. Let's try it again. Okay, can you guys see what I'm doing? Plug that in just like that. And now when I put the tester into the end of the socket here, I will have 12 volts, which it shows me 12.4. That's what the voltage is. All right, after probing around a bit, I found that another test point up here, right above these other relays, the two blue fuses, we have a source that is switched, and there's no power to it now. When I turn on the power, it'll display the voltage. As you can see, I've turned the power on, and I have voltage showing. If I turn off the power, the voltage goes off. Therefore, that's a switched source. As you can see, I've got 14 volts showing on the meter, and when I turn off the car, it goes out. And then this other one here still has 12 volts. So I've got the connections done. I just have to connect the ground wire to a ground screw here somewhere, and then I can route the rest of the kit in and hook it up to the camera. Now, when you're looking for a ground point, keep in mind that many new cars have a lot of plastics, and you might find a screw that you think is grounded, but it's actually not because it's screwed into plastic. So this is where you bring out your test meter and test to see which screw is actually grounded. This one is not. Doesn't appear to be grounded, but this one down here is, because that bracket is grounded. So we'll take it from this bracket right here, because that one we know has a good ground. Okay, once you've got the ground hooked up, connect the accessory and battery wire to the two that you've already detected. In this case, this is my accessory and this is my battery wire. So I'm going to connect the two of those, and then we can complete the installation. So there's the battery wire there that's always on. So we're going to plug that one in like that. And the accessory wire, we're going to plug the accessory wire in like that. You make sure that the boots completely cover so there's no exposed wires. Now I'm going to tuck the wires in, tie them up and tuck them in, and then I'll route the wire up to where the camera is going to be. We'll get the camera mounted and go out and do some shooting with it. Okay, got the camera mounted. I've got the wires routed up over the headliner there, so everything's tucked in, ready to go. Camera's turned on. Let's take it out and show you how it looks.
The COVID safety plans to be to adjust as we move through the steps, so that by July we can have increased capacity, and this will look different for us. We can have organized gatherings with the safety plan, both indoors and outdoors, with much larger capacity, and in the summer we can have fairs and festivals with COVID safety plans in place to make sure that we can do that safely through the summer. And then finally, once we get to September, if the data still shows that we're on the right track, we can have larger gatherings where we can have audiences. So a rock concert, or hopefully watching the Canucks, maybe even get into the playoffs next year.
Yeah, right. Canucks,
in terms of
playoffs,
right now,
dream on.
We still are going to have our zones within the province, but we invite people starting today to explore within those zones. Go camping within the area that you live. But we want to protect those areas that have less transmission and make sure that we're not spreading the virus that is still circulating right now. As we get into the middle of June, if things are going in the right direction, we'll be able to open up BC to BC. And I encourage everybody to book a week-long event, go explore British Columbia with your family, with your friends for a week in June. As we go into July, we expect that we'll be able to welcome people from other parts of Canada, even though we know that we're at different places in the pandemic and means. So this means we'll be moving forward once again in alignment with the Via Sport guidelines that we've been working on together over the last number of months. By the time we get to July, we should be in a place where all of the indoor fitness classes can be increased in capacity and
Thank you, Dr. Henry, and I'm Ravi Kalan, BC's Minister for Jobs, Economic Recovery.
I know you just saw a sign that said 70 and
an exciting milestone for all of us.
indicator's only showing 59. Well, that's because I got some slowpoke in front of me that won't even get to the speed limit.
Challenging 15 months, but our joint efforts are paying off. As you have heard today, we are now in a position to begin our 4-step restart plan, thanks to the efforts of British Columbians. I want to share what...
Oh, the radio station clock is off by 10 seconds. We saw the time there, GPS time, and their 1:30 bong was off by 10 seconds.
This means that beginning today, you can support your local restaurants, bars, breweries, and dine indoors, outdoors, with up to 6 friends. In step 2, banquet halls reopen with limited capacity and with safety plans in place. As well, going above and beyond to serve their communities and keep their workers employed. And I want to speak directly to the business community throughout BC. I want to say thank you. You have made unmeasurable sacrifices in so many ways and have worked endlessly to keep your workers and customers safe. Because of all British Columbians banding together, we're able to bend this curve.
Traffic and milling and paving in Richmond affecting traffic on Westminster Highway between Cooney and Garden City. Anticipate delays in all directions. A message from Canadian Blood Services. Are you between the ages of 17 and 35? Join the Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry today. Visit blood.ca/stem cells. In the AM 730 Traffic Center, I'm Trish Jewison.
Ensure your strata or commercial property is protected by the experts at Bartec Fire Safety Systems. Get a free estimate at bartecfire.com.
Global Sky Tracker weather, a mix of sun and clouds today, 40% chance of showers, highs of 17, and becoming cloudy late tonight, lows of 11. In Chilliwack, it's 21 degrees, mostly cloudy. Outside CKNW at Pacific Center, it's 19 degrees.
Okay, I think that pretty much does it for just a run on the freeway there so you guys can see what the picture quality is like. Again, this is not the full quality mode because I shot this at 2550 by 1440. I've rendered it out at 3840 by 2160, so we've scaled it up a bit to a 4K frame. But it looks pretty good. It certainly looks better than a 1080 Dashcam, but calling it a full 4K, no, it's not a full 4K. It's getting closer, but a true 4K camera will deliver a little bit sharper picture. But it seems to do the job pretty good from what I've seen just while I've been watching the files here. We're going to take one last look before I close this one off. Back on the bench, we're going to play the files back off the camera just so I can show you guys how that part works.
Okay, so we've had the camera out. Stop it from recording here. Menu.
Photo mode.
Press and hold the menu key.
Playback mode.
Okay, here's playback. So I can pick a file to play back and then select playback. And play the file back. So you can play back your file right on the camera itself. And it shows down in the bottom corner here. Oops, the speed. I think it's showing the speed down there. What are we seeing down here? Anyway, that's how you play it back from the camera itself directly. I'll stop it. Now remember, this video, I didn't shoot this in full 4K because in full 4K it only records at 24 frames. I didn't want the motion judder of going from 24 to 30 frames, or what we would call the 3:2 pull down. So I recorded it at the next resolution level down, which supports 30 frame recording. So the picture quality that the camera is capable of is a little better than what you're going to see in this demo, but I'm rendering this out in 4K.
Thanks for watching. Link is in the description.